My Hero Academia Season 7 was just announced, and I don't always do videos on announcements, but this could be the very last season announcement for My Hero Academia, given that there isn't that much left to adapt from the manga, as we've been told time and time again that My Hero Academia is now in its ending stage. So for possibly the last time, what can we take away from this announcement, and what can we expect in the final season of My Hero Academia? First off, just in case you didn't actually hear about the announcement, where am I getting the announcement that this is happening from? Well, in the latest issue of Shonen Jump, which is coming out after the last episode of My Hero Academia, which is airing at the end of this weekend, we have this scan here that features Deku and Bakugo as well as their voice actors, with some still untranslated notes from both of the voice actors about everything that's happened in Season 6 and their thoughts about everything moving forward towards the future of Season 7. And at the very top, it says TV Anime Season 7 confirmed or approved. And this scan really takes me back to the old days when we ran Shonen games and we used to translate scans like these and actually put the English text onto the scan itself. And that's really making me think if I should pick up something like that again in the nearby future for this channel. But for now, let's move on to what else we know about Season 7 of My Hero. Starting with what I'm sure is going to be one of your first or biggest questions, and that's going to be, when can we expect to see the next season of My Hero Academia? Well, I believe personally, and this isn't going to be something that you want to hear, that there is going to be a delay or a decently long break between this season and Season 6. And the reason that I expect this is because of Horikoshi's health and the various breaks and hiatuses that he's been on. To me, it's safe to say that they can't finish this season without Horikoshi actually finishing the manga, unless they want to leave us off in a situation where the fate of the ending is unclear and we may have to get it in some sort of movie or other tie-in feature similar to how Attack on Titan is being handled right now. The anime catching up to the same arc that the manga is in currently is an entirely new pressure for Horikoshi to try and handle, and if he does intend to end the series here, then the anime team is going to either have to put things on hold until he does, get extensive details and notes from him regarding what to expect as well as sketches for the final moments of the series, which could take him away from the work of actually completing it, or again, we may be faced with an odd situation, with My Hero Academia right now kind of turning into a weird Game of Thrones situation, right, where the author hasn't actually completed the ending, but we are now moving into that final season. But here is where we actually want to place our spoiler warning for this video. From here on out, we're going to be briefly brushing over the events that we can expect to see next season, but if you want a more in-depth breakdown of everything that happens after My Hero Academia Season 6, check back on the channel the day of the final episode of Season 6, where we'll be doing exactly that, so that should be up this Saturday at the latest. Now, the first thing that I think we're going to expect to see in Season 7, something that I know we're probably not going to see this season because there's just no way to reach it, of course I'm talking about the Star and Stripe versus Shigaraki fight. And here we see Shigaraki going up against the world's strongest woman, America's strongest hero, the #1 hero there, flies her way all the way over to Japan to try to meet with All Might and Deku to get a hold of what's happening of this All for One situation, and midair over the seas of Japan, we see that she's interrupted by Shigaraki. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth with what happens in this fight or how it ends. I already have a video on the channel literally describing the entire fight like a narrator, like I'm literally there telling the story, so please go check that video out, or at the very least, it'll be included in the compilation video of everything that happens after the season this weekend. But the Shigaraki and Star and Stripe fight is a really massive way to start off Season 7 just because of how big of a battle it truly is. I mean, this in the manga, you could read it as a movie scale fight, and they've ended a season off by having like the big Endeavor versus High-End fight, and that was really awesome. That was a great spectacle, but if they would have ended this season off with that fight, it just would have been insane. But I feel like the back half of the season would have suffered because they would have had to put a lot of time and people on that part of the season. So I like how they're starting us off next season with this big battle between Shigaraki and Star and Stripe, specifically because the first couple episodes in every season of My Hero Academia tend to be some of the better looking ones in the season overall, right? Like we see that they do put a very solid effort in those first few episodes, and then we get a couple down episodes and stuff like that before we dive right back into the madness. So I definitely do think that they're going to go all out for Shigaraki versus Star and Stripe. It's a fight that really takes the scale of battles in My Hero Academia to an entirely other level, and I expect it to be really hype once we see it in the trailer for next season, but again, that's something that I don't think we're going to be seeing for a good while. After the whole battle of Star and Stripe and Shigaraki, we're going to start our final battle preparations, because again, in this next season of My Hero Academia, we are going into another war arc, but this is the final battle between all the heroes and the villains. All the cards are on the table, every hero and every villain is here, and it's time for one last battle to settle who's going to rule over Japan. So expect to get some extra material from some of your favorite characters. We're going to pop in on the League and see what's going on with them, and really over the course of the season, season, we're gonna start to get our final goodbyes to a lot of these characters and start seeing them in some of their last moments as a lot of their character arcs start to come to a conclusion. So it's gonna be really interesting to see if they expand on any specific part of the final battle preparations, just to give us a little extra time with some of the students, pro heroes, or villains. Of course, a major thing that's gonna be happening next season is the reveal of the UA traitor. And again, without necessarily saying exactly who it is, we already have videos on this channel that you can go watch and figure it out for yourself if you're an anime only. But soon on this channel, we will be telling the full story of the actual traitor reveal itself. And the traitor reveal is something that I feel like a lot of people meme themselves into thinking Horikoshi just completely forgot about, right? But Horikoshi, I really don't feel like he forgets about many plot lines at all. He's very intentional about the plot lines that he sets up. So I'm glad that this plot line was brought to its conclusion with even a nice, really good fake out at the very last second, with us thinking that it was someone completely different to who it ended up being. And I'm wondering how that's going to be handled in the anime, right? If that's just going to be like an in between the episode break, or if it's just not going to be a cliffhanger at all. Regardless, the whole thing of the traitor I felt was very interesting in the manga, and I think with the music and the added flashbacks that I'm sure the anime is going to be including, it might hit a little harder than it did in the manga, because I've definitely seen some people in my comment section saying they don't even really remember the traitor reveal, and that says a lot to them about the quality of it, right, and how hard that it hit. So hopefully in the anime, it does hit a little different. Now, after that, immediately after the traitor reveal pretty much, we have the beginning of the final war. Truly, the final war will begin with all sides being in the same place as the battle between the heroes and the villains begins. And we are going to see a lot of dramatic moments and a lot of battles that have been built up over the course of the entire season in this final section. So let's quickly breeze through some of the fights that we can expect to see without really going into the content of what happens in those fights. Because again, I'm not trying to directly just spoil you guys for everything that's coming next season. I'm just trying to whet your appetite and get you excited, because I do believe it's going to be a long wait. So first off, do expect to see a full-on Shoto versus Toya battle. They do not hold back in this battle between each other, and Dabi especially goes extra crazy, but you should be expecting to see something really new and cool from Shoto during this battle, and the full battle between them is already up on the channel with excellent animations included that you can watch in the card on the top right. After that, we're going to see some amazing stuff between Bakugo and Shigaraki, and I know a lot of Bakugo fans have been starved to see a serious battle between their boy and another villain, right? Because Bakugo is pretty much skirted along the entire series without necessarily having any sort of one-on-one fight against his own villain. So in this situation, we are going to see Bakugo go all out against Shigaraki. It is going to be a fight for the ages, and I know it's going to have one of the biggest moments in the entire season so far, or the series. And because of that, and just because of the amount of characters that are included in this fight, I say Bakugo versus Shigaraki, but there's really a lot of other characters that take part in this section of the story. I feel like this is going to be a lot for them to try to adapt in like 1 or 2 episodes, and that's kind of the theme of a lot of these battles. This last season, there's just so much going on at any given point. Every episode is bound to be very chaotic. Like, no matter which battlefield we bounce from into, it's going to be crazy because there's just so much happening. After Bakugo versus Shigaraki, we're likely also going to see Ochako versus Toga. This is another plotline that's been set up very well since the early stages of My Hero Academia, and we also got a fresh reminder of it very recently when Ochako gave her speech about Deku to UA in the last episode, or the most recent episode of My Hero Academia, of course, when she thought that, like, you know, we all have to be here for Deku and then maybe we could all smile together in the future. She realized that everything that she's saying about Deku also applies to Toga in a very similar way. And I think that's going to bring her to make some strong decisions in this next part of the story, so I hope you're excited to see where it goes, and the fact that, of course, Toga is still mourning twice, and Toga has some tricks up her sleeve. Another fight that hasn't necessarily been hyped up all that much, but something that's going to be very interesting to see, is All For One versus Team Endeavor. Now, we know that Endeavor should have to have some role to play in the Dabi versus Shoto battle, but Endeavor actually has to fight the biggest fish that there still is to fry, and that, of course, is All For One himself. And I really like how the entire series, Endeavor has been pretty much begging, right, to step into All Might's shoes, and now Horikoshi and Team Bones is going to have the opportunity to let him do exactly that as he fights All Might's strongest and biggest antagonist, All For One. And All For One is definitely going to pull out all the stops here, like you've said for other characters. He's not really going to be holding back, and he's going to pull out some interesting techniques and some interesting strategies that it's going to be very nice to see animated. And as well for Endeavor himself and the rest of Team Endeavor, which includes Hawks and various other heroes, it's going to be great to see Endeavor's big flashy moves that he does against All For One in this section of the story, but also, because this is likely going to be the last season, to see how the Endeavor plotline really wraps up, right? To see how everything happens with the Todoroki family, with Shoto, with everything just going on in that plotline that is really really brought itself to the center of My Hero Academia in many ways. How is that going to end? That is a big thing that is on my mind going into this last season. And lastly, when it comes to battles, of course, we're all looking forward to the biggest battle, the most set up battle in the entire series, Deku versus Shigaraki. And Deku versus Shigaraki, as far as how it's gone in the manga so far, it has been a multi-stage final battle, with the battle happening at different times, at different places. It's not just over because you see them take a break, we're starting again, we're gonna get at it. There's different phases to this final boss battle, and I'm sure Shigaraki wouldn't have it any other way, considering he's such a big gamer himself. Now, expect to see Deku like you've never seen him before. Honestly, I was getting really hyped for Season 7 when I saw the scene of him using Fajin in the anime, because if that's how they're animating Deku using kind of like the highest speed that he's been able to use in the anime so far, I don't know what they're gonna do in Season 7 with full one-for-all Deku, right? Like, since this is the last season, you can clearly assume that Deku, by the end of the series, is going to have completely mastered one-for-all and be able to use everything that the quirk has to offer. And in this last season, as he takes on Shigaraki, we can definitely expect to see that, but I don't know what else to expect. How are they gonna give us that? How is it gonna look? I just think it's gonna be nutty, and I think sound design is actually gonna be very important in this last arc, specifically because of things that Deku does a little later on. Now, for the final season of My Hero Academia, if this is it, I think we should expect the best, but that might not be the most reasonable expectation to have. I personally would like to see some of the heavy hitter animators that we've seen through the seasons return for their own goodbyes, and to be honest, I wouldn't be against seeing Umakoshi on the show more often as well, since whenever he's on, it just feels like that original My Hero again for many fans. Personally, I'm hoping Yuki Hayashi sends us on one last Sonic journey through the series, and maybe even hits us with the greatest Yusei Run remix of all time. And lastly, I'm just expecting to see how things end for the characters that many of us have been following for years and years now. Who ranks higher on the hero list? Who ends up with who? Who doesn't make it? What is it like in UA for the rest of the time that they have there? And who stays friends long after their time at UA? These are all questions that I want answered before the end of the series. And it's really surreal to imagine that we'll be seeing it all animated in just a year or two. So here's hoping that Horikoshi is given the rest that he needs so that he can close this out and we can all sit back and watch the amazing effort that I'm sure Bones is going to give for My Hero Academia. What are you most excited about for My Hero Academia Season 7? And do you think it'll be the last season of the series? Or do you think even after the season is over, they'll find some way to squeeze anything Horikoshi hasn't written yet into a movie or some sort of special episode? I really want to know your opinion, and next up on the channel, I'm cycling through series as we prepare for the next season of Demon Slayer, which is set to drop in just another week or two. So we're going to start letting loose some of our Demon Slayer videos, but this week I've also got 2 Boruto theories and a new manga recommendation video that I want you to check out when they drop. So for all that and more, hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification to make sure you don't miss out. And it would help me a ton if you guys would hit that bell icon and get our videos just a little higher on the search page so we can continue to spread our knowledge to every corner of the community. So this is Pineapple. I'll see you guys later, and if you haven't caught the most recent chapter spoilers for My Hero Academia chapter 383, please check that out in the end screen. See you later. Peace.